We are back now with Dan O'Brien. He is our K-State grain market economist who regularly covers our grain market update for us week to week. So Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Samantha.
Absolutely. So today, let's go ahead and start with futures. I know we've got some interesting movement going on there. So let's start with that.
Yes, in the corn markets, we have good news and bad news. It just depends if we're talking about production, which is the bad side, or prices, which are the good side. The recent trends in the corn market have been tremendous. We had, and you and I have talked in past weeks of how we'd gotten down as low as about down to 560 or so in latter July, early August. But since then, there's been just a number of other growing concern about what actual yields and production will have here in the U.S. and got up to as high as $6.90 a bushel on the DEES contract. Closed on Thursday. Yesterday, 668.5. So strong sentiment in the markets. Base is still holding up pretty strong. You can look at spot cash price bids across Kansas. Again, 91 cents over basis at 759 in Colby. The highest price, Garden City, 788, knocking on the door of $8. $1.20 over basis. Hutchinson, $1 over at the best bid locally. 90 over in Salina. Columbus, 80 over. Topeka, 40 over. So all strong bids. In looking at corn futures and the cash together and how that's expressing itself out here in the country, again, we've been watching basis levels of late in these key locations: Colby, Salina, Topeka, Garden City, and Hutchinson. And a number of those locations, we have seen some weakening from the highest or the strongest basis levels, but that hasn't been sustained. In a typical year, we'd see basis weaken going into fall harvest. But if anything, we're seeing the basis turn up a little bit now in Garden City from having weakened some. Now it's turning back up in Garden, in Salina, seeing that happen in Hutchinson, a bit in Columbus. So still strong basis in all these areas, but I guess, and that would be consistent with a fair amount of the discussion we've been hearing from farmers that things dry enough in the western part of the state that corn that people were trying to rescue for forage as they try to pack it, drying down so quickly in some cases that they're having difficulty in siling it. So just dry conditions, dryland crops, awfully tough in a lot of these cases. It is interesting to see Milo now having held on through some of this, having caught a few rains, and having a chance now to get something on dryland acres in some of those areas, and corn in some situations as well, but just a challenge. So you asked me about what's going on in the corn market. I think the big issue in corn, which will be the centerpiece of this USDA report coming out on Monday, will be the estimate on the one hand of what the national yield per acre is estimated to be by the time you take the tough conditions in the west and some in the north, and the better conditions in the central and eastern part of the U.S. and the Corn Belt and the southeast. You end up with the trade coming up with a pre-report estimate guess of 172.5 bushels per acre, so 172 and a half, and a production number of a production number about just over 14 at 14.008. A number of independent analysts have been coming out in the past week, and there have been the Midwest tour a couple of weeks ago, we already talked about 168 bushel an acre, 13.8 billion bushels. One or two other analysts coming in at 171, 172, something like that, and some others at this 172.5. So the market has dialed in a whole range of uncertainty, and 172.5 being the average number at 11 o'clock our time when that number comes out, and that USDA NASS crop production report comes out. If it comes out and says something much lower than that, then we're just set up for a lot of volatility and a lot of impact. And you take that number into the supply demand balance sheet. Current marketing year, the one that just ended, now it's the old crop marketing year, the one that ended August 31st, estimate of about 1.55 billion bushels carry out. And now with the crop problems we've got, they're looking at that thing that number, that ending stocks figure, to tighten up to about 1.2, 1.22, something like that. And stocks to use already below 10, probably closer to 8. It just does seem like it, when you look at these converging factors, that's very likely that we'd be going into harvest time frame with prices well supported, basis not weakening but holding up strong, if not increasing, and just a lot of competitive bidding amongst buyers for any corn that does get produced out there. So just a lot to look at, and I would say we don't have time to talk about the corn sorghum condition ratings, but Kansas is rated as basically the worst state for corn conditions. 27% very poor, 24% poor, 27% fair, and about 22 actually fair to good. And that by far is the worst state. So we're right in the middle of it. Grain sorghum, Kansas 20% very poor, 29% poor, 32% fair, and then 19% good to excellent. So challenging situation. Of course, my office is located out here in the western third of the state. There are a lot of major crop problems being reported in the central part of the state, south from basically that southern, I guess the southern half of central Kansas, showing a lot of reports of just those hot temperatures and dry conditions just really hurting a lot of crops. So lots to think on. And if you don't mind, I'll switch over and talk on soybeans on that.
Yeah.
The soybeans would be a big part of the same report too. And really, the surprise, we're already expecting something volatile in the corn market. A surprise in the soybean market would be something much different from what the USDA had projected before. They projected 51.9 in the August crop production report. Pre-report expectations are for a little bit less than that, about 51.5. You do see a range of about 50.7 to 52. And really there's the expectation that, we've had a combination of some hot weather and some not so hot weather in August, but that the market's expecting that, hey, soybeans, they'll do just fine. The heat really didn't affect them. If we do come up with a surprise number of something below 51, closer to 50 and a half, something like that, that would rile up the market and really impact things. For soybean futures, we've been trading in this range of about 1375 to about 1480 or so, and right here of late we're trading right at the bottom of that range. So we'll see where that may go to, I guess. And in terms of crop ratings, again for soybeans, a lot of other, Nebraska is at very poor, 12%, 16% poor. Kansas 20% very poor, 24% poor. So again, here in the Western Corn Belt, we're taking the heat literally in terms of the pardon me, rougher conditions and the impacts of that on the crop. And as it's been the story all along, all summer, Samantha, for the most part, the Western Corn Belt's been suffering from these La Nina droughty weather conditions. And the central to eastern Corn Belt sort of on the break-even line, and you do see Iowa in that part of the world having its areas that are pretty dry too. So it's kind of a difference of opinion between the West and the East in terms of where crops are going to go this year in the U.S.
Absolutely. But a little bit more positive news, hopefully, in terms of, we just talked about a lot of the negatives that we're seeing in terms of Kansas being rated right now in terms of crop yields, but a bit of the positive news when it comes to some of the trends we're seeing. Wheat prices are trending higher. So that's a positive to look forward to.
That is. And of course, the USDA Foreign Ag Service export numbers are that reporting facility online is down and won't be reported on. We won't have any numbers out of that till September 15th. But the Ag Marketing Service gives weekly export loadings, and the last numbers that came out of that were a pace of about 17.5, 17.6. million bushels of exports the week ending September the 1st. And we need about 16.2, 16.3 to meet the USDA's projection. So that is welcome good news in the wheat market. And you do see some wheat bids in some of our major exporters, Topeka, export locations in the state, in Topeka and Hutchinson and Salina showing some strength. So that's all for the good. Prices actually trading at the top of a range. Well, they've been trading in a range in essence for about 925 excuse me, about 925 down to about $8 for a good while. Had popped above that range, settled yesterday at 893. So trading towards the top of the range where we had seen prices of late. And you stand back and look, well, what could be affecting that? Well, we're waiting to get moisture, of course, to help us in our fall planting. And for winter wheat here in Kansas, you have uncertainties not being resolved in the Ukraine-Russia situation in terms of the amount of wheat coming out of there. So those are all there to be dealt with. So I think that overall, we are seeing a little bit more positive news in the wheat market, and that's surely welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully conditions will fix themselves to where producers in this state can actually get some wheat in the ground as planting season is fastly approaching. But that's welcome news for sure. Moving on, Dan, from our futures and some of the overviews of our markets, there's some big things going on in Europe. As we're recording this today, Queen Elizabeth II actually passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 96 years old. We were commenting earlier before we went live, just the amount of life that she lived and the legacy that she's going to live on. And it's such an impressive one. But outside of obviously the repercussions of that, a whole country in mourning, there's a huge energy crisis going on in Europe.
Yes, there is. In fact, a new at the same time as Queen Elizabeth passing away, you have Britain announcing electing a new prime minister, and that one of the first public statements that I heard that person state was that they were going to reopen fracking. In an effort to, and again, they're no doubt they'll try to balance environmental concerns, et cetera, but it's an effort to bring increased energy supplies, gas and petroleum into that European market. And again, North Sea fields are a prime area right there that can be explored. And all of Europe is trying to deal with a situation now where all evidence is that Russia is cutting off or inhibiting, constraining the Nord Stream natural gas flow into Europe. A lot of tremendous concern right now during the summertime of having adequate supplies, much less what could happen this winter. So natural gas prices in Europe have ramped up tremendously. And so during a time when here you have the passing of a monarch in Europe, a major monarch, and of course in England, you have a whole amount of other energy and economic related issues all up in the air. So be interesting to see. And it's my own comment, I guess, that the British in their normal paced approach will probably keep marching through this, bring their leadership to the fore, and let's hope as they my own personal hope is that they come forth with more energy supplies and be able to offset some of the other challenges that Europe is facing in terms of energy supplies for this winter.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a time to be named prime minister. I feel horrible for that person. I can't imagine the stress and the amount of pressure, but we will be watching that for sure, because of course their energy concerns eventually trickle down to become our energy concerns as well when we think about it in a global market mindset. So something to be mindful of for sure.
Yes, high energy prices in Europe affect the world market. It affects our market. So again, we're not we don't have the same pipeline, but we have the same. But on the margin, we're competing for energy supplies. So it affects us, no doubt.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, as always, we thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Take care, Samantha.
You as well. Once again, that was Dan O'Brien. He is our K-State grain market economist providing this week's grain market update. We'll be back with more ahead. on Agriculture Today.